Hey guys, Brian Hill, The Complete Combatant. You're on my channel and you know that. And I brought my good friend out today because he's completely opposite than the way I am. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Chris from Tactical Advantage in Oregon.
All right, so he came a long way just to do this video for you guys, so you better appreciate it, give him some love, make some good comments about it. We were talking about the path to a better draw. You know, everybody wants a sub-second draw, and it's incredibly doable.
Absolutely.
You know, you even made the bold statement, I think, once upon a time you can do it from strong side. Yep, so it's a doable thing, it's achievable. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to come out under performance problems, pressure, right?
Yep, true.
So if whatever reservoir of skill we have, so say I can push for 0.8s, then usually under pressure it'll be high 9s.
Yep.
Something like that. Yep. I see about a 0.1 to a 0.2 difference. Is that what you find too?
Yep.
So you're very fast physically, and I'm not physically, but I'm very strong, all right? And those were the things that we have cultivated and learned for ourselves. But it meant that we took a different way to get there.
Absolutely.
I'm very consistent driven. I practice on a routine schedule. I'm an automaton in that way. And my progress seems to be very incremental, where you've had some pretty big jumps sometimes, right? Where you just let go of that. So we're going to talk about two different draws here. Mine is primarily comes about from good efficiency. And I think yours comes back about from managing your ability to move fast.
Yep.
You know, giving it some processing power. So I want too much information and he wants too much action. All right, that's the difference between the two of us. I'll over aim and he'll go kinetically fast and be enthralled with that.
Ricky Bobby.
But you know, that's important. So as training partners, I think we make a good mix. You know, we could push each other a little bit. And I think for this video, what I want you guys to see is two very different body types. I think we're a little different. All right, we got the large size, we got the medium size. We're a little different that way. And we're going to do your draw, and you can talk about it a little bit in the key salient points that you had, and then I'll do my draw, and then we'll talk about how to get ready to perform.
Okay.
All right, so let's do your draw first.
Well, I'm unarmed.
All right.
So just to kind of run through the movements for me, recently I started kind of doing surrender.
Okay.
So really for that, kind of where the speed comes from, it's not really from here to here, it's from here to here. So it would just be how quick are you getting to the gun, and then kind of trying to be mindful of where I'm taking my cover garment. And that's why the surrender works good for me. Because in the past I've struggled with weak hand kind of placement on the gun.
So did it come on too late?
Yep, absolutely too late. Late to the party all the time.
Worst habit I see in the range with fast guys is their hand doesn't come on until the very end of the draw.
Yeah, like I would get almost here, and that's if you're seeing like right, left Charlies. That's what's happening. So when I kind of fell into the surrender, it kind of worked much better for me because I could better control kind of my hand placement. So really like there, and then we all know the modulation stuff, but I really practice most of the time doing like a 90-10.
Okay.
Not really trying to modulate out unless I have a really refined shot that needs to happen. So with an A zone, it's just hammer it. And then kind of try and focus from like right here, trying to catch really here and get that grip locked in. But really, I found the most gains is just kind of relax this movement. So even if you kind of tried to break it down, you know, and just when you go full bore, just let it go. So
are you being a bit more careful? Are you seeing a little bit more?
Oh yeah, for sure. Now
what does that really cost you compared to your full Ricky Bobby moment and shooting? Has it cost you anything?
No.
This is what I find with speed guys. There is no price for them to look deeper.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. Once you get the mechanical movements, then start thinking about it in a different way. Start thinking, when are you catching your dot? Think when you're joining your hands, and if you catch your dot here, you have more time. You know, if you're just throwing the gun out here and you get out there, you have less time.
I like your choice of word, throwing the gun out there. Because that would mean that we're doing what? There's no stopping point. There's no control over the gun, and we're just going to jam it out there. We do get lucky and connect, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Sometimes.
But at what range does that really stop working?
Yeah.
You know, 7 yards, 10 yards, somewhere along that, just can't throw the gun out there anymore. So for me, and all of you should know, because you've seen my channel, but for me to get really good at the draw, what I did was break it down into parts and see how well I was doing with each part, where the biggest time period was. For me, it was reaction to the beeper.
Yep, for sure.
I've been a fighter my whole life. So fights don't start with a beep, they start with the other guy trying to hit you. or grab you or take you down or whatever. So I'm very visually driven. 40 years of visual mapping is hard to overcome. So what I did with the beeper is I made it a physical property instead of hearing.
Gotcha.
So we know the fastest sense is touch. Second fastest is hearing. So I got to be faster hearing something than I am seeing something, because that's the slow sense. I don't know about tasting and smelling. We don't really use that. So, shouldn't be a part of shooting. But what I started doing was reaching with my ear for the beeper so I could feel the pressure of the beep, which put me in a position where I was ready to go sooner.
Yep, I absolutely understand what you're saying.
What I would do is dwell. That's the athletic term for it. I would get into a dwelling position where I would stay too long. That's like over aiming. Another problem. Too much time spent gathering information. Is that really the beep? Should I go? We like to creatively say, what? Go on the B, not the eep. But that never really changed it for me. But when I started reaching for it with my ear, it made a big difference.
Yeah, I absolutely. You can almost find someone that's really, really drilled that hard. If you, and it happens in fast guys a lot, where they'll actually jump the beep, where there's not necessarily that's a good thing, because you're anticipating it. You don't want to game it, but
you need to do it, right?
Yeah, when you're that tuned in to what's happening. Like I find it on the range all the time. If there's something going on in another bay, when I hear a beep someone else, I'm like, oh, wait, that wasn't mine. But
and then we get the tactical training scar, that if you hear a beep, you're going to draw the gun. And I was at primary, secondary all weekend, and there was a lot of unintentional V's going on.
Oh yeah.
And nobody drew a gun. But when you're waiting for it, like if I hear a gunshot, I may go.
Yeah.
And is it important to go soon sometimes, too soon?
Yeah.
Because we got to know what that feels like, right?
Yeah.
We're jumping it.
Yeah, and I think that's agreement and understanding of the task at hand.
Right.
Right. So even in a good way to break that habit is kind of, I'm a big fan of learning how to draw without shooting a shot, even on, or do a micro drill, even on the range, do just a hand to gun, or do like to a half presentation or something like that, to kind of start teaching yourself that the decisions need to be made.
Yeah.
It's not just an immediate way, let's go. So that helps you kind of stay in it, and you're actively working within the presentation versus full fan.
I like to break things down into threes. That seems to be as far as we can hold the decisional process is about 3 options. And one of the things I do with the draw strokes is thirds. So this third is the most important and rich. Sport hand should be fully formed. Fingers should be going to trigger. I should seeing the sights and trying. Then this third right here is getting the hands together when they're already gripping, concealment out of the way. And then the first third, which tends to be the most fragile, is clearing the covered arm and getting a grip.
Absolutely.
Now, do your clear like you did before.
So like,
all right, and then just go pretend like you have a gun. He's been disarmed. We wouldn't let him have a real gun. He's traveling, that's all it is. All right? Now, if you watch the same movement from me, whether I start hands up or hands down, you'll notice there's less motion, because that's the only way I can keep up with him. Will you stretch your arm out? Okay? So, they're about the same length, so I can't use that excuse and say your arms are shorter and they're quicker like that. But when you watch him move, just do it one more time. See how quick he goes? Doesn't matter, do it again. The mistakes are just as important as successes. And then when you see me do it, it's more of a roll.
Yep.
So I don't look fast. My wife says I don't look fast until I get below 0.9.
Yeah, yours is actually quite smooth. And I've watched you shoot and like just learning how to kind of roll. But when I try and do that, it's almost counterintuitive for how my body works, especially with like neck injuries, things like that. So I kind of learned to be more compact, and then just kind of, but that came over time, trying to figure out what worked better for me.
Too much, too little, too much, too little.
So you just have to kind of explore.
Yeah, and you seem to be very electrified, like Gabe White. Gabe White looks like somebody plugged him into an outlet, and he just goes all of a sudden. But then I see other guys like we trained with Riley Boltman this weekend. I did, and he's very solid. Yeah, it's a very solid move, much like Mike Seeklander's very solid type movement, and mine's almost watery. Like it doesn't look right until you look at the timer and you're like, well, I'll beat him. That's the right score.
Well, I think like I'm going to struggle to find the word, but I almost want to say like frenetic.
Yes.
Where some people react better explosively like that.
Yep.
But you have to understand what that means, and I'm not saying add extra motion.
Right.
But how almost disjointed some people are just like that.
Well, you fire quick. That's what's happening. The signal to go and it reaches your hands very quickly, so you should be moving at that speed.
Right.
You wouldn't want to slow that part down.
Right.
You know, maybe we slow what we're seeing down because we know that's the slow part of it. So why is the timer important?
Oh boy.
He didn't know he was getting this one.
Feedback, no matter what, feedback is the most important thing if you're trying to improve a skill. Because thinking you're good at something, it doesn't really tell you anything. Where if you have feedback, you have a metric that you can base, you can try to do different things. Explore. I'm a big fan of explore.
Great word.
Like we use, with my company, we use test, evaluate, and adapt. So you're testing things. Evaluate if it worked. What did the timer say? Because the timer doesn't care about your feelings. It just doesn't. And if it works, try and adapt it. Try and see how you can fit that in your method. So yeah, if you are shooting without a timer, that's probably the biggest bang for your buck in skill improvement. Just having the tool, measuring it, tells you things.
Guys, it's funny how often systems that we use to manage companies should be the same one that we're using to manage us. You know, like Agile. I'm not an Agile guy, but everybody who comes to my class that does Agile, or like you teach like you're an Agile instructor. You know, same thing, measure, refine, and perform. We're saying the same words over and over again because it's important to explore the excess and the lack of at the same time. Now, here's the problem with the timer. If you're really shooting at your highest level, do you feel disconnected from the target and the gun? You feel pretty well like you're just observing the whole thing?
Yeah.
Do you have any sense of time?
That's an odd one. That's actually a very interesting one because, and everyone experiences this at some point, is when you achieve kind of flow. Time expands. You know, there's
it's called time dilation.
And
it's fast and slow at the same time.
Where you have your ability to cognitively understand and evaluate what's happening is there. Like if you're feeling rushed, you haven't got quite there yet. And it happens to everybody no matter what. You'll just be in a situation that you feel rushed. But man, when you achieve it, when you don't, it almost becomes easy.
So what's the easiest way to program yourself to get in that flow state?
For me, it was doing the work. I mean, you had to get there and you have to, well, you mechanically have to get the work done. You have to learn how to do it, but then you have to kind of separate your own self-image from the work. So if you're worrying about, like, say you're shooting a drill or any kind of achievement, and you go up to the line and you're worried about making that drill, it will not happen. It just won't. If you go up with a strong sense of self that you can absolutely do it, and you can unchain yourself or unlock yourself to do it.
So do you use visualization to do that?
I try. We actually.
And can you over visualize?
Yeah, you absolutely can. And it's the hard part about visualization for me is I tend to input a negative even if I don't mean to. So even if I'm doing like a positive visualization, that little voice in my head will input a negative. And that voice is so much louder than the positive one. So it's an interesting one to kind of.
I'll give you a little neuroscience. So our frontal cortex is the part that criticizes ourselves. It's totally unnecessary for shooting. So when you get into a true flow state, they call it hypo transient frontality, where you shut the front of your brain down, and now you're just allowing it. So we feel a connection to the target, feel a connection to the gun, we feel a connection to things because we've suspended our ability to be separate. Therefore, there is no time. There's just connection. And then your visualization, if you do it too often or incorrectly, you'll program yourself just as if you said go faster, is wrong. So you have to release the visualization, which is releasing the struggle. I'm going to simply go perform at my highest level that I've earned through practice and skill, as you said. So I think that makes a big difference for people to know that there's a struggle and release phase to this.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And shooting short. Now, athletically, it almost doesn't count. You know, you're only doing a very so if you shoot USPSA, how long are most stages? 40 seconds? And I think the reason they're 40 seconds is because you can hold your breath that long. I really think it's the truth. I think most rangers, they're like, well, I can hold my breath that hard. All right. But we have this very short duration. And in self-defense wise, we're talking about what? 5 seconds tops, 3 seconds. So
now work.
Will we have a chance to visualize before we get started? Yes, because this is working at the speed of our neurons. So, we can do a visualization very quickly. And something I would offer as a coach to add for you is put a kinesthetic visualization. So if you're missing the grip, you don't feel the gun, or you don't breathe, visualize doing that, which is a weird thing to say because it's a physical activity.
Right.
But then it gives you a touch point so that when the observer notices you're not doing it, it'll pick it right back up.
Gotcha.
Kind of an interesting way.
Good stuff.
Anything else?
I don't think so.
Listen, we treat our guests so well. I let them come out here and stand at a pile of cow poo. That's how I really treat guests at my range.
Good for you.
Yeah. And I hope that helps you guys. You know, it's important to see draws and all that, but I think it's important to hear two guys that worked really hard at what we do.
For sure.
You know, that own training companies, and the struggle and the necessary to figure this out, and the words that we search for, because it's hard to articulate what's happening.
For sure.
It's so compressed, right?
Yeah, and it's an athletic endeavor, and I
Yes.
think that gets discounted
Yes.
a lot.
Yes.
And,
So when your neck was hurting, was it easy to do any of this?
oh gosh, no. But you know, it's a commitment thing. If you put in the work, anyone can do this. Anyone can do this. You might have limitations, but there's no magic sauce to what we're doing. I'm talking about shooting fast because it's how we're framed today, but it can be done.
Have you ever just had a new client show up and be a great shooter?
I've had some that
Without
were better than
instruction.
others,
Yeah, but never great.
No.
They just didn't pick it up and they went, oh, I got this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the people that have the most, that I've experienced, that have the most physical prowess, or if you were sizing someone up that looks like, well, that's a really athletic person, they tend to struggle more because they don't necessarily understand the endeavor that they're getting into. And someone that's already athletic sometimes struggles with that because I'm not sure what to do.
Yeah, it depends how close your sport matches up with what you're doing.
Sure.
You know, I found martial artists and musicians are really good at shooting.
Yeah, like if you could throw a jab.
Because we know how to practice.
Yeah,
too.
and I think like musicianship, I get in conversations about this all the time because I think musicians have a very well-developed sense of time.
Yes, they do.
And that time buys you options. You know, you learn how to do things within a small space. But yeah, I love those conversations.
Well, you know, if you play a note too soon or too late, you're still off time.
Yeah.
You know, so if this is purely visual with some kinesthetic in it, as long as we know that we're there at the right time and everything's ready to go, we can send it.
Yep, rock and
and
roll.
be ready to do that. You know, it's funny in this, it's much like jiu-jitsu. There's a whole bunch of killer nerds in the world. You know, people don't get this, but we would have jiu-jitsu guys, man. You walk in, you're like, I'll take him. You would be wrong, because he is a killer nerd, especially, I don't know what it is, guys in IT and stuff like that, man. They got the time, they spend at it, and I see guys showing up at the range, you know, and you can never judge who's going to be the best shooter.
No.
You don't know who it is, man. You know, you can say, well, maybe it's him, but there are people in the world that just are willing to put in the work to get good at stuff.
Yeah.
You know? And I think there's a parallel with the idea of IT work and engineering and stuff where you have to program yourself.
Yep.
You
An
know,
analytical
you have to build
nature.
it is. All right, we've talked enough. Great video, guys. I hope that helps you. Listen, technique is great, but there's 3 parts to every athlete. There's the technical progression that they have, psychological progression is what we talked about, and a physiological progression. If you never go fast, you'll never know what it feels like.
Yep.
So it's like saying I'm going to jog for the rest of my life and be a good sprinter. You're not. If you're going to sprint, you're going to run so fast that sometimes you fall down. And imagine in a self-defense situation, if you've never gone as fast as you could and you end up at that speed and you can't back off. We want to be able to modulate ourselves according to what we need to do to solve the problem. And that's what we're talking about on it. Yep. So highly recommend this guy. Get with him. Get some training. You know, listen to the videos. You got your own channel, don't you?
Yep.
Want to plug it real quick?
Tactical ADV on YouTube.
That was really easy. See, he didn't want to plug it. I know how we all work. We're not the greatest promoters of our own stuff. But this stuff is free, guys. You know, 40 years ago when I started martial arts, you couldn't figure anything out. The time a move was invented, yes, we invented some new moves, to the time everybody picked it up was a 3-year span. All right, and then we started being able to go to things and see them a lot more frequently because they were televised, and then it was a 3-month span.
Sure.
Now it's a 3-day span.
Yeah, real
You
time.
can see the world champion do it, and you can study it, and then you can pick it up really quick.
Yep.
So a lot there.
For sure.
It was
Thanks,
a pleasure.
man.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in, guys. And as always, measure, refine, and perform. Awesome.